like Gravity Falls, and I should have made this video a while ago because I got the Book of Bill pretty much the day it came out, and for some reason I've been putting this video off. But I've been a Gravity Falls fan for a while. I really like anything that has to do with lore. Gravity Falls was kind of the beginning of that, and I just really like the humor and the mystery of it all. So, the Book of Bill, very exciting. I won't be covering every niche little page in here because this is a very dense book, and I'm just here for the lore. So, whoa, let's go. We begin with an intro warning of the book from Ford, who apparently found it and learned that you need to give permission to read it or something like that. It's pretty easily defined at the beginning of the book, but he also mentions that Bill kinda has a cult, but mainly just in a form of an edgy rebellion from the town teens. Robbie's probably involved in that, but after his whole intro thing, we're thrust very quickly into the Bill of it all. We give Bill permission to show us the book, and first of all, he opens by openly denying that he has died, and also explains that the book's pages are made out of pressed brain matter because, in his own words, he can invade anything that has neurons. So he can basically write in the book without writing in the book. That seems like an easy explanation, but as we'll learn later, that's not the whole truth, and it seems like Bill likes to exaggerate the power he has, but all of that is later. So the first real section of the book is the About Me section. There are different sections in here, all explained in the contents part, and a lot of them, again, have a lot they talk about, but not too much of it is lore-focused as it is just good old-fashioned Gravity Falls dark, funny fun. So, first of all, in the interview section, where he's interviewing himself, he mentions that he got coffee with a black hole once, and this is the beginning of a long thing in this book where he's weirdly cagey about his love interests and exes. Apparently at one point he dated Bloody Mary, which I ship it. Also, at a certain point in the book, he goes on to explain the powers he has, but again, he tends to exaggerate, and he starts to talk about the weaknesses himself, but then blames us for looking at the weaknesses, and then just forces us to read a few pages of The Great Gatsby. And this is the beginning of the Gravity Falls Reddit's biggest headache. Why is there such a deep connection to the book The Great Gatsby in this thing? Maybe it's just the fact that one of the characters, TJ Eckelberg or whatever, is an eye doctor, but I don't know if there's a deeper meaning, because I haven't read through the whole thing. Also, in the official PDF that is linked to on the current site, and also that's just online, there's a typo where the letters ICE in police are capitalized, which could lead to a theory that Wendy is possessed, but honestly, at this point, any character could be possessed. Jason Ritter's losing his mind on Twitter, Seuss is fixing the website and has yellow glowy eyes, Mabel... maybe not Mabel, but everybody else. After the Gatsby section, Ford returns and scolds us for having read the book so far, and we don't care. We're here for the lore, we're here for the continuation. So, we push forward, and Bill tests our worthiness by giving us a school grade style assignment, and turns out you're not supposed to do it. I did it, don't tell Bill. And after that, we're into the meat of the book. Besides the literal meat this book is made out of. Again, brain matter. The Bill's Guide to Everything section, while dense as all get out, is also not that intense in lore, I'd say. He does go deeper into his main philosophy of reality is an illusion, the universe is a hologram, and apparently by hologram he means holographic Pokemon card. So that's yeah, but mostly the main lore comes from the Dream page, and this is where we find out two major things about two major characters. One, most of Wendy's dreams are about her mother, a character who is often theorized about in the Gravity Falls fandom, as she's never really been seen, and Dipper has a reoccurring nightmare about an argument he overheard of his parents fighting. And it's implied that their marriage is on the rocks, and that's why they send Dipper and Mabel to Gravity Falls each summer. So that's some weird background that gives a whole new context to Gravity Falls, and I'm sure that if I rewatch it with that idea in my head, a lot of stuff will change. And part of me wonders if that was always the idea. I mean, Alex Hirsch is known for kinda solidifying things before we even know about them. Also, there's a page in here about the Mirror Realm. It's very cool because it's all inverted, so in order to read it, you need an actual mirror, or if you're like me, you just take your phone, keep it off, and just read the reflections. But then we get into the more lore-wise meat of the book, Bill's story. First off, Bill, baby. Yeah, turns out Bill, the literal devil, used to be an infant. Who knew? I'm pretty sure he's implied to be a variant of Loki, at least in The Simpsons, and that makes sense in the show as well, but maybe he's just a triangle from another dimension who was cursed with the gift of seeing the third dimension and destroyed his entire own universe over it. So, after destroying his universe, he recruited his crew, who we've seen in the Weirdmageddon episodes of Gravity Falls, and together they heisted to the edge of the universe. Literally, the edge of the universe was closing in on them, and they needed to find a new universe or they'd all be forgotten about as if they never even existed. So, they came to our universe, or the Gravity Falls universe, which, I hate to break this to you, isn't real. And although he had a short conflict with Time Baby that ended with him freezing Time Baby in an ice capsule, and I don't know how timeline-wise that works, if it's before we see Baby in the Weirdmageddon episode, if it's before all of the time cop stuff we already know about. It's complicated because it's time travel, but it's not too bothersome, and it explains something that not a lot of people would think about, which is, if Time Baby was there, why wouldn't he have stopped Bill immediately if Bill's been here for so much time? A lot of this book is recontextualizing how long Bill has been here and how the characters could have possibly not known about that yet. And it also explains another plot hole that people wouldn't think about. If he was in our world and knew that Gravity Falls was a weirdness magnet, why didn't he go to Gravity Falls immediately? Turns out he did, befriended a local there, but then that local cursed him to be locked out. Until later on, that curse was broken by Ford wanting to learn the mysteries of the universe and all that, and everything we already know about, but we only learned that later. But I'm just telling you about it now so I don't forget. And then we get a whole chunk of storytelling that's basically Bill throughout the years, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, having his own cartoon, having a weakness, which is an extremely catchy song that he can't get out of his head once he hears it, which is a weird weakness for the devil to have. But I think the most prudent part of this section is the story of the Anti-Cipher Society. It is a society that was founded long ago and comes back into play in the Lost Journal 3 pages, and it's written by Thurbet Mudgett Wackstaff III. He seems like a wacky character, but he's got, besides Bill or Ford, the longest narrated section in the book, which is massive. It's not one of the other Pines family members. It's not one of the other characters we've even met. It's someone we haven't met yet. It's someone who has his own short story within this story, and it's a very interesting story. To give you a quick rundown, he was approached by Bill, who gave him an idea for a slogan for a product, but soon after realized Bill's a bad guy, recruited a whole team of people over it to try and stop him, Turns out this was all part of Bill's plan. They tried to bring this matter to the masses, but they were thought crazy, and Thurbert got locked up in an asylum, but with the sole confinement that the room he was in was lined with lead. And Bill can't get in your mind with metal. I still correspond with my fellows, although they have gone to their respective fortunes. Abigail has moved out west and married into an impressive fortune with a massive mansion. Perhaps she will spread the truth to the elites of this distant town. Do you think me mad? I have my peace of mind. He can never get me. If I could wish any fate on him, therapy, it would drive him insane. It's a very good story, and I hope we learn more about Thurbert, and I hope he comes into play later, maybe in the same way Quentin Tremblay came into play, where he was frozen in molasses. However it happens, I'd like to see him if they ever do make a season 3 or a movie or something like that. Also, in this section, we learn about what I presume is Bill's full name. Bill is short for William, which makes sense, but Cipher is short for Lucifer. Again, confirmation that he might just be the in-world devil. And then that brings us to the Sixer section. The section all about Ford that brings us the Lost Journal 3 pages. Obviously, we learn about how Ford broke the curse to bring Cipher back, and about how he was learning all this different stuff. But the Lost Journal 3 pages also give us another short story involving Ford, Fiddleford, and, obviously, Bill. Because turns out before Fiddleford left the operation, there was a whole Krampus Christmas short story. Fiddleford had just given Stanford a new pair of six-fingered gloves that he knitted himself, and was gonna go home to visit his family. You know, his family who he's kinda ostracized from in Gravity Falls. In Ford's final battle with Krampus, Fiddleford swoops in to save the day, because turns out his trip had been cut short after he got in a fight with his wife about not getting her a Christmas present, even though he had the time to make Ford those gloves. And Bill and Ford are communicating and having this whole thing going on, and eventually it separates the Fords completely, and when Ford later tries to find things that Fiddleford was working on to stop Bill, all he can find is a torn photo of them in college where Fiddleford's side of it says, "Try to forget," and 5 failed prototypes of the six-fingered gloves. I don't know why there was this whole tragic love story involving the two Fords, but I'm happy about it. And then after severs were cut with Bill and Ford, Bill went on a drinking rampage. It's one of the funniest parts of the book. I really recommend you get the book just for that. I won't spoil it. Now, the book finishes with Bill trying to recruit us, the reader, to go to Gravity Falls, shake his hand, so that he can take over our body, start Weirdmageddon again, and we can rule together. But we don't do that, do we? Because we get a message from the Pines family. Ford returns, figuring out that the book only really has power if you follow Bill's instructions. And that's really easy not to do, turns out, when you know for a fact that Bill is an awful person. We get little tiny messages from Dipper and Mabel, and it's really nice to hear from them after a long time. We got them in the Lost Legends, but it's nice to have a one-on-one. And we also get a long message from Stanley Pines, who, after that section is completed, it's kinda hinted at that that's who Bill has the biggest grudge with, which makes sense. He killed him, but it's really interesting that he's not angry at Stanford. He's sad that he lost Stanford. He is furious at Stanley. And I really want to see what kind of dynamic they have in the future. Although if they make, and I hate to break this to you, if they make a Gravity Falls movie that takes place the approximate number of years after Gravity Falls, as would be appropriate for current day, Stanley's probably dead. And after that, we get a callback to the axolotl. Finally, the axolotl thing is being explained. Turns out the deal they made was Bill would be reincarnated eventually, but he would have to go through the axolotl's toughest trials. Therapy. That's right, after so many years, Thurbert's story is concluded with Bill getting his just desserts and being trapped in the Theraprism. Also, the core from Amphibia is there, 'cause that's fun, but even on this heroic note for the Pines family and a dour note for Bill, it's ultimately implied in one of the most ominous book endings I've ever seen that Bill one day will either get better enough to be released from the Theraprism, or be freed by someone willing to read the book, go to Gravity Falls, and shake his hand. And it's just a matter of who. And we'll find out who as soon as Seuss fixes whatever's wrong. Buddy, the blue wire connects to the blue wire. But yeah, that's a lore breakdown on the Book of Bill, and if you want me to break down how this connects to my overarching theory, I don't think I've recorded for this long ever, so that's not ground I want to break into yet. But on a brief overview, I'd say probably one of the Pines family is possessed, but more likely it's just someone in the future at some time. Bill will wait in the Theraprism for 10 years? How long has it been since Gravity Falls started? 12 years. Bill will wait for 12 years in isolation until someone finds the book, reads the book, agrees. Maybe one of the Bill cult members I talked about earlier shakes his hand and starts something. I don't know. Honestly, if they make a Gravity Falls movie, I feel like the Pines family won't be the entire focus, or at least not Dipper and Mabel. I really hope that the next Gravity Falls project they make is in the current day. They're all adults, so we get to be introduced to some new characters that are relatable to the new generation. Hopefully not in a cringy way. Although probably in a cringy way, because the Pines are also in a cringy way. You know what I'm trying to say. And a new character, or maybe an old character, will be possessed by the Book of Bill. Who are the most likely to me? Well, maybe Robbie, since he's probably a member of that Bill cult I mentioned earlier. Maybe Toby Determined, in an effort to finally be worth something. Maybe Gideon, probably not. He already went through the whole Bill thing, probably doesn't want to go back down that road. So many theories, so many thoughts, so many different things could be true. But we won't know until Seuss fixes the website. So I'm very excited, and I'll be holding on to this. By the way, you might have noticed this is the Barnes & Noble edition. I'm not sure which pages are exclusive to this version, because I don't have the other version for comparison, but there's a lot of good stuff in the book. I recommend you just get the book. I know I gave a lot away, but the plot stuff isn't the most enjoyable thing about the book. The most enjoyable thing is just Alex Hirsch's style, and it's very comforting to be reintroduced to the world of Gravity Falls, the way everybody talks, the way everybody narrates, just Bill's dialogue. We haven't heard from Bill since the finale, unless I'm mistaken, and there's another, obscure mini-sode or something like that. But yeah, check it out. It's good. See ya.